So, as has become tradition, we're going to start off by beating the crap out of the Oathbreaker Knight to show off our damage, but first let's just take a moment to look at how awesome Karlach looks here. Just really cool. Alright, let's punch him. Okay, so we stunned him, which means we actually didn't start a combat, but if we had failed on this stun, we could immediately enter a rage, which would have any incoming damage that we would be taking back, meaning that there are almost no consequences for failing this stun, but since we did, we can just go ahead and use Flurry of Blows with our first bonus action. Yeah, our violence hasn't gone unnoticed, and then we can go ahead and use Flurry of Blows with our second bonus action.
Sort of fight.
And then we can go ahead and make another attack. And you can see we've taken one of the most dangerous enemies in the game down to half health, stunned him, knocked him over, all in a single round of combat. And all of this was done with no buffs from allies, no elixirs running, and almost no items equipped. As you can see, we have very few items equipped, just some clothes. And so obviously the total damage output of this character would be even higher with all of those things, but it operates almost independently of teammates and items, and can take out one of the most dangerous enemies in the game in a single round. Let's get to the build. Hello my friends and welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 build guide. I hope you're all doing well. This build, which I am calling the Bare Knuckle Fighter, is newly possible as of patch 6 and I think is awesome. Monk as a character class is one of the most powerful classes in the game, with the highest ceiling, doing some of the highest damage output with the most accurate attacks thanks to the broken nature of Tavern Brawler, as well as providing a ton of crowd control thanks to Stunning Strike or Toppling Blows, and giving you just an all-round machine in terms of damage and crowd control. However, it has two key weaknesses. One is that it's squishy, with relatively low AC and hit points compared to other melee fighters, and two is that it's highly multi-attribute dependent, meaning it needs 4 of the 6 attributes to be as high as possible, strength, dexterity, constitution, and wisdom, in order to maximize the efficiency of your monk. This build allows us to mitigate both of those downsides, creating one of the most powerful characters in the game with none of the associated downsides with this character. There are, of course, some trade-offs, but this gives you a lot of extra options in terms of how you're going to build your monk. It's an extremely flexible and powerful build, and it will make up for any misplays by being extremely resilient in play and having all of the powerful damaging effects and crowd control that you're used to from a monk. Let's jump in and start building the character. Before I begin, though, I do want to quickly say thank you so much to MXF5000 for becoming a channel member, Alexandra Cartano for becoming a channel member, Tilted Kyoso for the 20 euros, and Fearsome Jin for the 5 euros. Thank you so much, my friends. I really do appreciate it. This character, I'm using Karlach as the example character because if you haven't guessed from the name, the character will be using Barbarian because in patch 6, the Bear Totem Barbarian's rage was fixed, so it now adds the rage damage to your unarmed melee attacks. We're actually, for that reason, going to start our character with a level of Barbarian. The reason for this is that it gives you just additional hit points from the beginning of the game, though it's not that important, as well as access to better skills overall, because monks don't give you access to perception skills, whereas barbarians get perception, so it's just a better skill selection. That's not that important, and if you prefer being able to make unarmed attacks on the Nautiloid, then you can begin with monk, but I would recommend starting with barbarian for this build. For our attribute selection, we get to build a very clean attribute split because thanks to our Barbarian's Unarmored Defense class feature, Barbarians get Unarmored Defense just the same as Monks do, only it's based on their Constitution instead of their Wisdom. We can dump Wisdom, letting us only have to take 3 of the 6 attributes instead of 4 of them. This makes our attribute selection for a monk much cleaner, while also giving us the same boosted AC that you would get from a monk, and the same additional damage that you get from being an unarmed attacker or a barbarian. So, for that reason, we are going to take 17 in strength, 14 in dexterity, 16 in Constitution, which gives us +3 to our armor class, and then we put our remaining 2 points in Wisdom. You will still take Wisdom boosts if you can get them throughout the game, and of course if you want to use an Elixir of Hill Giant Strength, then you would simply take this attribute selection, but with 16 Dex, 17 Constitution, and 14 Wisdom, and that would give you the additional bonuses from that. This build, of course, like every melee, like every strength-based build, benefits from using the Elixirs of Hill Giant Strength, but we're going to build it without them because one of the great things about this build is it doesn't have the strict attribute requirements that normal monk builds do, and so you get to get away with not having to be forced to drink a Hill Giant Elixir every day. That's all for our level 1 decisions. We, of course, make sure that we get Perception in our skills, because that's a great skill to have available in your party. And then we are going to level up. At level 2, we will dip into Monk, giving us access to Flurry of Blows and the unarmed attack damage. Our Rage will stack, adding 2 to our unarmed attack damage. And one of the great things about Monk, of course, is that you get to attack many times per round. Since Rage adds flat damage to all of your attacks, it just adds a flat +2 to all of your attacks, you are now applying that Rage damage many, many times per round, many more than you would as a standard barbarian. So you're getting even more value out of Rage than you would as a normal character, as a normal barbarian. And of course, you're getting higher damage attacks at this level than you would as a normal monk. No other decisions to make at first level monk, though, so let's continue to level up the character. Monk level 2, we get access to unarmored movement, and of course we will not be wearing armor or using a shield. We have the unarmored defense from Barbarian, so we have reasonable AC at this level. It's 15 AC with our Dexterity and Constitution, though of course we can improve that with any gear that we get that improves your AC. But 15 AC for this level, even for an armored character, is not that far off what you would expect most characters to be at, thanks to the armors that are available at this point. So we should be relatively competitive in terms of armor class with other melee characters in the very early game. We also get our bonus action, hides, and disengages, and patient defense, which are not massively valuable to this character. This character's bonus actions will be very stretched at this early level because we need to Rage with one bonus action, and then we need to Flurry of Blows with future bonus actions. So we will be benefiting less from these than a normal monk would. Luckily, these are not a huge component of most monks' powers. However, they will be useful if you need to get out of dodge really quick for an honor mode run where things are going badly, and so on. At character level 3, we get to pick our subclass, and I think one of the great things about this build is how flexible it is. I believe this build works extremely well with either the Way of the Open Hand Monk or the Way of the Shadow Monk. Way of the Shadow Monk gets you the teleports, their abilities all work while silenced, and so also work while raging, which lets you cast some spells while raging, which is kind of fun. But I'm going to recommend taking Way of the Open Hand Monk, just to maximize your damage. This also gets you the additional special flurries of blows, which let you topple enemies, stagger them, or push them, all of which are very relevant. Normally you're going to use topple because knocking an enemy prone also gives you advantage on future attacks, which lets you land your attacks more easily. It will help with your allies. You can trap enemies in place and stop them from moving if you can prone them when they have 0 movement. All of these are incredibly powerful and will give you if you prone an enemy when they have 0 movement, they will sometimes skip their turn because they can't get up since they have 0 movement. I still think that's kind of a bug, but since they haven't fixed it yet, it's definitely available to use. And of course, this just will give us the most damage later on. Since this character will be making so many attacks per round, the flat damage from Way of the Open Hand Monk is just going to be incredibly strong. At character level 5, we get to take our 4th level in Monk, and get to grab our first feat. You could, if you wanted to, take your first 5 levels in Monk and then start grabbing the Barbarian levels later to get Tavern Brawler as soon as possible and get extra attack as soon as possible. I like starting with Barbarian because it gives you additional hit points and gets you access to better skills, but that's also certainly an option. It's never wrong to rush Tavern Brawler as soon as possible, and of course the feat that we're taking when we hit Monk level 4 is Tavern Brawler. We will boost our strength, which is why we took 17 in strength, though if you wanted to use Ethel's Hair, you could have taken 16 and maybe gotten an extra 2 points of wisdom out of that. Also definitely an option, but this is the cleanest build without any boosts from strength elixirs or Ethel's Hair. Tavern Brawler allows us to apply our strength twice when making unarmed attacks, so all of our unarmed attack, both to hit and damage, so all of our unarmed attacks will be hitting at +8, and +8 from our strength plus our proficiency, so our attacks will all be hitting at +10, and adding +10 to damage, which is going to do an enormous amount of damage given how many times we're attacking per round. The +10 to damage comes, of course, from raging, because we get 8 from strength and then 2 from our rage damage, so we are able to add even more damage to every attack than other monks at this level would be. Tavern Brawler is so powerful because, as I've mentioned in some of my previous build guides, it breaks the rule of Dungeons & Dragons design called bounded accuracy, which tries to keep your hit chance within certain values so that it's never like 100% for you to hit. Basically, you should always have more than a 30% chance of doing stuff and less than an 80% chance of doing stuff in sort of the way that this game is balanced and designed. Tavern Brawler completely breaks that rule by giving you +4 to hit at this level, pushing you way outside the bounds of the bounded accuracy system, meaning that you're going to hit with just about every single attack at this level, and totally negating the disadvantage of monks attacking with unarmed attacks, but making them both hit more often and do more damage than characters with weapons. This allows us to do massive damage with every single turn because we're making 3 attacks, all of which are doing an extra 10 damage, so we're averaging 30 damage per round just from our bonuses, let alone any dice that we're rolling. Character level 5, we take another level in Monk to get to extra attack and also to get to stunning strike. This will allow us to stun enemies, preventing them from acting and also giving us huge bonuses when attacking them. Stunning Strike is so powerful, it works on just about everything, and the save DC is based on the higher of your strength or dexterity, so in our case it's going to be based on our strength, meaning that enemies are going to be very likely to fail their saves against the stuns, and you are going to be able to stun almost every enemy in the game. There's actually very few enemies that are immune to Stunning Strike. It is a boss killer and will allow you to make 4 attacks per round against an enemy who can't do anything to you while raging the entire time. At this level, I think we want to start getting our defensive skills online, so we do have a choice to make. We could either take another level of Monk to increase our damage. We get to add 1d4 damage of this elemental type, plus whatever wisdom bonus we've managed to scrape together to our unarmed attacks. So because we are a barbarian, right, and add 2 from our rage damage, it's as though we were an open-hand monk with 14 wisdom. Either way, we add an additional +2 damage to our attacks, so that lets us skate by with lower wisdom and get higher constitution, higher strength and dexterity than a character would otherwise have when building with Monk, unless you're using the items that give you bonus stats. And then even if we are using the items that give us bonus stats, it will still let us have much cleaner stat spreads by using the Hill Giant Elixir. We can then increase our dexterity more, increase our constitution to 18, increase our wisdom even higher, and get even more damage than a standard open-hand Monk build would get, thanks to the rage damage and the Barbarian's unarmed defense feat. So, at this level, I do recommend taking your 6th level of Monk, but you could also go into your 2nd level of Barbarian right away, which is what we're going to do next. Because at this point in the game, our sheer offense is starting to fall behind just a little bit. There are some enemies that we won't be able to stun or won't be able to burst down in a single round, and we need to start getting our defenses online. Well, one way to get those defenses is the increased hit points from Barbarian. But another way to get those defenses is when we hit Barbarian level 3, we get access to Wildheart Barbarian, and we can take Bearheart Rage. Bearheart Rage halves incoming damage, and so suddenly our squishy monk has gone from one of the, as sort of a glass cannon of a melee character, to one of the tankiest characters in the entire game. You're incredibly mobile thanks to the fast movement from your monk levels. You are also incredibly tanky thanks to your rage damage resistance from Bearheart, which halves all incoming damage, and your damage has kept up with a normal open palm monk build at this level because we get to add our rage damage, and therefore the lower wisdom doesn't actually hurt our damage at all. Altogether, this package has now come together to build a character that is as powerful as a normal open-hand monk build would be, but without any of the downsides at this point, and of course we can now make it even better. One thing that this character does struggle with is that your bonus action is very in demand, because you want to rage at the beginning of combat using a bonus action, and you need your bonus action to make Flurry of Blows attacks or additional unarmed attacks just from your monk levels. But there is, of course, a way to fix that. This isn't mandatory, and you could also continue to monk level 9 to get the Resonating Strike and a second feat, or you could continue to Barbarian 6 to get one of the additional beast aspects, but I think that the best way to build this character at this point is, like many other monk builds, to start building into Rogue. The reason for this, of course, is that Thief Rogue gets an additional bonus action when at level 3, so while we don't benefit from Sneak Attack, and our bonus actions are so constrained that the bonus action Hide, Dash, and Disengage from Rogue level 2 are not going to be massive points in our favor. When we hit Thief Rogue at level 3, this gives us an additional bonus action, allowing us to rage and make a Flurry of Blows attack in the first round of combat, and then make multiple Flurry of Blows or offhand attacks in subsequent rounds of combat, massively improving our damage. In the second and later rounds of combat, after we've raged, this gives us 6 attacks per round before we get hasted or bloodlusted or anything from an ally, all of which, of course, will increase our attacks more, and those 6 attacks per round are all adding an additional 10 damage to every single strike because of our rage damage and the double damage from Tavern Brawler, so our per round damage without any other bonuses is somewhere around 80 to 100, which is very good before you even take into account that we can add additional bonuses by getting more strength, additional bonuses by getting items that add extra damage dice to our attacks, or additional bonuses by getting buffs from allies. So when you put it all together, you have a character who has almost all of the damage and utility of the normal open-hand monk, thief, rogue, multi-class character, and almost none of the downsides. So you give up very little and mitigate two really difficult problems that the character has, its squishiness and its attribute dependency, by being able to mix in Bear Totem Barbarian and just having all the damage that you take in an encounter, while maintaining the level of damage output that you would get without the Barbarian levels, is incredibly powerful, and also lets you play much riskier with the character. Normally with a monk you have to attack and then run away because your character has low AC and is relatively easy to, and low HP, relatively easy to take down, so you need to use your mobility to escape. But with this character you can be much more aggressive about positioning in dangerous locations, and also because of your low AC, enemies are extremely likely to attack you, which you actually want, because then you're taking half damage, and so you're getting double value from any healing that this character is getting, any support that this character is getting, any temporary hit points you have from aid or hero's feast or other sources of healing or temporary hit points like items and spells, all are doubled when they're applied to this character. So the ability to force enemies to attack you, both by being an enormous threat thanks to your extraordinarily high damage output and crowd control effects, and also by manipulating the AI into attacking you thanks to being easy to hit, makes this character an incredible tank as well as an incredible damage dealer. For items for this character, you actually don't have as many strict requirements as other monk builds as well, which is one of the nice things about this. You get to be much more flexible with your items, although I do highly recommend the Bone Spike Garb, because the Bone Spike Garb gives you 15 hit points, temp hit points whenever you rage. You're going to be raging in most fights, and those 15 temporary hit points are doubled because you have the Bear Totem Barbarian rage, so they get twice as much value. That's just a lot of additional tankiness, which is really nice, and reducing all incoming damage by 2 is incredibly strong because you are also having all damage. When you have a multiplier on your damage reduction, then any flat damage reduction you have in addition to that gets even more valuable, because the flat damage reduction is then reducing a higher percentage of incoming damage, since all incoming damage is reduced. The Bone Spike boots are nice for theming, but not as necessary, though they do give you a little bit of AC and saving throws, which is always nice. But of course you can use any of the other boots. Honestly, the Misty Step boots are probably your best bet, like they are for just about every character. And you want a set of gloves that are either the gloves of dexterity to increase your AC and initiative, because this, like every character that doesn't have 18 dexterity, the gloves of dexterity are excellent on them, or just any set of gloves that increases your damage with unarmed strikes, like the flawed Helldusk gloves, just to pick one example. The additional damage that these do and the bleeding that these do gets applied 6 times per turn at minimum, meaning that you are going to gain an enormous amount of extra value. This character also works extremely well with Karlach, of course, because she has the soul coins, and when you use a soul coin, you gain the Infernal Fury, which lets you do an additional 1d4 damage while raging, which, of course, you're always going to be raging, and in the current state of the game, Infernal Fury is bugged and always works on unarmed strikes. I believe that's still true after patch 6. Always works on unarmed strikes, so you get this even when not raging, but this build is future-proofed, even if they do fix that bug, because you will be raging, so you're going to get the Infernal Fury buff. Of course, Ascended Astarion is also very good, as he is on every character that's making multi-attacks per round. Other notable gear includes, of course, Potions of Speed. Additional attacks are always very strong. Even on Honor Mode, 1 extra attack with this character is worth a lot. Elixirs of Hill Giant or Cloud Giant Strength give you massive value, twice as much value as they give every other character, because, of course, you will have Tavern Brawler, so you get double value from strength, and if you're regularly using elixirs, then you just want to drop your strength down to 8 and put those extra attribute points elsewhere. Other than that, no specific item requirements for this character build, which makes it really nice as a monk, because monks often have particular items that they want. This character, not so much, and so you get to slot this into a lot of other parties, a lot of parties without any trouble, which is particularly strong. Alright, my friends, let's also just, let's punch the Oathbreaker Knight just for fun here. I'm gonna just quick save real quick. Alright, my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the Bare Knuckle Fighter. I think this build is awesome, and I highly recommend giving it a shot. And of course, as always, if you have enjoyed this build or this video, do please take a moment to leave a comment and like the video. Both of those things help a ton with the algorithm, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to do that. I read every single comment that I receive. I haven't been able to answer them all lately just because the volume has gone up, which is awesome. But I do read every single comment that I get, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to leave your thoughts and let me know what you think. And of course, as always, if you've enjoyed the video, you can subscribe to the channel for more of this and other strategy game content. And if you have enjoyed the video a lot, you can consider becoming a channel member or leaving me some money with the buttons down below the video. Cheers, my friends. I'll catch you next time.